Obviously, I think as an industry, there have been times when we could so easily blame everything that is difficult in our lives on two critical infrastructure companies, Eskom and Transnet. I've always been concerned that once those start working again, we may actually have to accept some of the other challenges left in our industry. So I personally, as an observer, I like the fact, let's make a rugby analogy. I know nothing about rugby. I like the fact that Libbok is likely to miss the critical kick. So can we play a game where we don't need that? And my analogy with Eskom and Transnet is a little bit similar. Can we get to the place where they actually provide world-class services, and we as the miners have to therefore accept that growth is in our hands, that the challenges we face we need to address. And the two entities are not in the same place, and so that's why I thought it would be good. Let's have a conversation with Dan about Eskom, and then we'll talk with Michelle about Transnet. Same platform. You guys know how to do it. Your questions can only get to them via me. Okay. So you have to go online, use the QR code, type your question out, it will come to me. I'm going to chat with Dan for the remaining 17 minutes. I'll give you more time. Yeah. And then we'll take 10 minutes of question. And then similarly with Transnet, and then we're going to have a panel conversation after that. So all clear. Are you all settled in? Then there is 150 odd people typically online, which are out of control. I can't control them, so they may send the bad questions. The people here are the good people, I promise you. So Dan, I would, logically this conversation should start by asking you if this recent 6 months of load shedding is too good to be true. Yeah. We must start there. Yeah. Is it too good to be true?
Well, I've seen articles that says this was miraculous performance, all of a sudden, unbelievable. I'm an engineer myself, I believe in science. There are no inflection points in life. Yeah? You have to be very intentional and deliberate. When you understand your plans and you are following through on them, you expect that at some point you'll start seeing gradual improvements, and when the plans are robust, you see the sustainability of those plans in the results that you have. What we need to do, Bernard, is to go back probably to 6 months prior to the observation of no load shedding. What were the headlines saying at the time? Eskom was saying that we are load shedding. Bear with us because we are doing a higher percentage of maintenance than we usually do. So we load shed the country through the summer when the demand was generally very low because we were doing intensive maintenance in anticipation of the winter. And the messaging was that it's a pain for now and it should bear results and dividends as we get into the winter. So when we came back from maintenance levels of 7-8 gigawatts, that capacity, which was well maintained with support from OEMs, very focused attention with external support from the NECC processes, started showing us the performance that we anticipated. So there's nothing sudden. You can only see suddenness if you are looking at a point in time. But if you're looking holistically at the process, you should anticipate such results. It would have been catastrophic if the results were not reflective of the investments, both from a time perspective and the money perspective that went into this, the previous summer break. Yeah.
So can I just explore a little bit? So, again, I just engage with Eskom through social media, newspaper reports, what I read. And I don't know, is this now, who shall we credit? Management, the board, shareholders? Just unpack.
Or the customers.
No, us customers are victims of you guys now. So
I thought you said the bad questions are coming from the guys online. In the comments.
yeah, but I was leading you down a path. I mean,
Yeah.
they should have warned
Yeah.
you. Your team
Yeah.
should have warned you.
Yeah.
No, but to unpack first. I
Yeah.
mean, there are platforms where Mbeki speaks about leadership, as he should, I mean, you are the new CEO. You're part of the board. This morning they just spoke, but not about Eskom, but about leadership. Last year, I criticized the shareholder for some of the things. So unpack for us, who gets what credit in this sort of emerging turnaround?
I must tell you that the turnaround at Eskom is a result of a country project. We got to a point where the level of load shedding was really a menace to everyone. And we should really give credit to the fact that government as a leader of our society really rallied and said something has to be done and mobilized various parts of it. Last night, the second phase of the partnership between business and government was launched by the president. We should remember that the Energy Action Plan really started creating the focus and mobilization of resources to support Eskom, both financial and also additional support from the private sector. There was a mechanism of how to engage with the Eskom teams. The board provided the leadership or implementation phase in terms of framing the plans. The management could focus on executing, given the resources that were at their disposal. So we should actually, take credit as a country for what is happening at Eskom. We all play various roles in there. You cannot underestimate the importance of having the right people in the right seats. That you can't take away. At the granular levels, we will tell you in Eskom that we've had to relook at the allocation of our power station managers to look at the experience and match that to the complexity of various stations. That, we want to put someone that can respond to the challenges of the particular station vis-a-vis the other one. Within the EXCO level, at the board level, we have a board that is having adequate level of technically competent people as compared to what you had previously. You have a management team that has got very different characteristics that are bringing to the party. This is not the time to be worried about who exactly and who's that single individual. This is a country project, and I think if there's anything that we can take away from this is that if we tackle common programs for the country in the same way, in the same spirit, we should really be, all of us will be back to what we want to do. We'll be back to what we want to do and not be in the space forever. Yeah.
I think it was perhaps the Daily Maverick, but 2 days ago there was but behind this magic turnaround, a bit of cynicism. The one thing is demand in the economy dropped, which is a statement of fact. And then I think on a per power station basis, you've got new power stations finally performing, and some of the old ones really doing horrifically bad by your own metrics. Is that a true reflection? You've got a portfolio of assets and not all of them are in the same shape yet.
So let me also be a little bit cynical here. When there's load shedding, it's Eskom. When there's no load shedding, it's demand that has dropped.
I like it.
So let's approach this from a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
There are a number of factors at play here. It's a fact that if Eskom doesn't perform, we don't have sufficient base load that caters for the times when renewables are not adequately producing. So we've always said this, you need a good mix, you need sufficient base load, you need sufficient dispatchable power to be able to deal with the demand 24/7. We've also accepted that a number of stations were not where they ought to be from a technical performance perspective, and hence the focus on doing the maintenance and doing that maintenance in a different way as compared to how it was done before. And naturally, you'll then expect that not all the stations will get there at the same time. Others have been quick out of the tracks, and we expected the Kusiles among the fleet to really be shouldering the bigger portion of performance, and that's what we're seeing. We are working We continue to see improvements gradually in some of the stations, and we've also seen very drastic improvements in the smaller stations that were condemned to be closed. You know, a station like Hendrina. So the stations won't be at the same place or same level at the same time, but holistically, what you want is for your system to be robust enough to be able to cater for the demand under different conditions.
So one of the reasons I asked you if we can rather have a conversation than you presenting was so that we can just park on a few topics. Like, I mean, I would like to unpack your or Eskom's thinking about the future strategy for Eskom with regards to your coal fleet, coal's role in our energy mix, the decommissioning of our coal-fired power stations, because we had Germans pronounce on it, we had ministers in other departments pronounce on it, we had Eskom pronounce on it. I don't know anymore. What is Eskom's view?
We've articulated a very clear view in as far as our move towards emissions reduction through the closure of old stations. Initially, Eskom's plan was to decommission a number of stations between 2024 and 2027. We've had to review that position against the backdrop of intense load shedding that we experienced last year, and also against the reality that of the many renewable projects that have been approved and planned to come online this year and next year, many are running behind schedule. Those schedules are not visible to you and I. But if you include those schedules and take them at face value, you run the risk of having inadequate supply if you continue with your definitive path of decommissioning stations. We thought it was a reckless thing for us to do from a country perspective, having understood the pain that load shedding of last year in particular inflicted on the economy and just the lifestyles of South Africans. So we took a practical step that says we'll delay the decommissioning of those stations to up to 2030. This will allow us time to have adequate supply, and it will also allow all the other renewable projects to come into play. And more importantly, it will also give us an opportunity to, unlike Komati, to develop strategies for the transition that impacts on the communities whose livelihood is intertwined with those power stations. So we're addressing a number of things with this. We are clear that those stations will have to be decommissioned. We are also very clear that we need to do a bit in contributing towards the country's strategy around net zero and the targets that we have. We ourselves have got clear targets in as far as emissions reductions are concerned for 2030. And we are going to stay along that path of meeting those targets through a different path, which does not involve necessarily total shutdown of stations, but partial shutdowns as we move towards 2030. Our view is that as a utility, and like many utilities the world over, we need to transition to embracing a number of other technologies, including a bigger portfolio of renewables. We do have some renewables within our portfolio. We had the first big wind farm in the country out there in Sere. We have pump storage at Ingula. We have demonstrated capability in this space. We are kept out of it through policy decisions as late as early as 2010, 2011. We think we have what it takes for us to play in that space so that we can remain relevant in offering electricity solutions to citizens who also deserve to have clean and green energy delivered to them. So for that reason, we have decoupled the decommissioning of stations from being the precursor to us starting our own renewable portfolio, and said that we'll start that renewable portfolio build up now. Between now and the next 3 years, we'll go into that phase. You will have seen that we are out in the market now for a 75 megawatt PV at Letabo Power Station. For Komati, we have a PV and a BESS opportunity out in the market as part of repowering and repurposing of Komati.
And BESS is battery
battery energy storage solutions. We have that out. We have now finished all the technical work by and large, in as far as alternative renewable energies at the sites that will be commissioning from 2030 onwards.
So in your mix, I mean, the first three questions that came through to Mteto this morning was about obviously nuclear, and that takes us right back into corruption. So is nuclear part of Eskom's future supply equation, and can we trust you?
So nuclear is actually...
Not you, of course,
Yeah.
but you know you.
Yeah, you'll have neighborly problems. Nuclear is part of the country's strategy from an energy perspective.
What size? Double what we currently have got?
And
or?
I'm coming there.
Yeah.
And Eskom...
He's bloody engineer, so you can't interrupt him.
Eskom is the only nuclear operator on the continent. We have the capabilities demonstrated over 40 years. We've just received the extension for the next 20 years to run Unit 1, and we are concluding work for Unit 2. We have the capability and to support the country in its strategy for nuclear. How exactly that program will unfold still needs to be finalized, but we see ourselves playing a very big and critical role in that aspect. So it is part of a mixed consideration from a baseload perspective. We think we can do that comfortably to the same level that exists now, that about 2.4 gigawatts. We also know that there are new technologies that are quite advanced from a nuclear perspective in small modular reactors. We ourselves have dabbled into this space before through the PBMR. We discontinued this as a country, and a lot of our IP has left the shores, and somewhere else it's been advanced to a point that it may be close to entering commercial operations. We are watching that space critically. We understand that the success of the small modular reactors give us opportunities to actually pivot from coal at some of our stations and use small modular reactors for base load as we go through. Yeah.
Then I truly grew up in an industry where I thought I understood base load. I'm not sure I understand that anymore, quite honestly, because of the way people pull the concept. And similarly, perhaps, and I want to go to the stranded asset. I mean, to me, it feels like you may end up as a stranded asset, or some of your coal power generation capacity. But I say that without having a full understanding of what stranded asset means. Are you worried about this concept of a stranded asset? The last coal power station is going to not have a reason to exist, but it's going to cost a fortune. Is that true? Is that a scenario you foresee?
Look, we have to, and let's all await the finalization of the Integrated Resource Plan 2023. It's now being worked on to integrate all inputs after the consultation processes. But we know for a fact that simply from the engineering limits, a number of these power stations will need to be decommissioned from 2030, some in 2035, some will run to 2040, some may require minor modifications for them to run a few more years, beyond the 30, 40-year horizon. So increasingly, the share of coal-based electricity is reducing as we go beyond 2030. This morning, I was actually looking at scenarios of how that portfolio of ours will actually start shifting. As to how it will look exactly in 2040, we don't know yet. What is critical is that the increasing component of renewable energy into your grid does bring along issues in as far as grid stability is concerned, and this is where your baseload plays a pivotal role. Technologies that enables you to keep grid stability are still expensive, relatively speaking. This battery storage, approach is still quite expensive. So you're going to see a change, Bernard. The rate of that change is going to be determined by multiple factors. It may be that towards the end, some of the stations, coal stations, will be more idle than in operation, that there will be your battery.
Europe has done that,
And we have also seen that in other economies that moved towards this migration from coal to renewables, the tariff model and the whole thinking around it had to change to adapt to, the need to maintain capacity for the times that you need it. So what we must embrace is that change is happening, and we need to also be reflecting that change within how we are set up, both from a regulatory point of view as we go through this year.
So one of the things I cannot comprehend is in this stranded asset conversation is exactly the tariffs, the costing, the pricing. Because obviously if we allow you to get 40% increases year after year, after year, after year, after year, then you've got no problem. Then your assets are never stranded and life is fine.
Yeah, I notice you've used the word stranded 5 times, and I worry it will stick in the minds of the audience here and everybody else.
But I want to come to
we do not think that there's a risk of stranded assets. We actually see base load capacity still being of relevant to the country.
And I personally do agree.
So,
but your fee structure.
So let's talk about our fee structure.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
So
Cost-reflective tariffs.
And this is a phrase we've had over the last 10 years.
I thought Eskom invented it.
No, it's
cost-reflective tariffs.
It exists everywhere. Look, we invented a lot of things, but this may be one of them.
Yeah, you invented load shedding when the rest of the world calls the rest of the world call it blackouts.
We invented load shedding, but also perfected how to manage it. We do have other system operators coming to learn from us.
We even miss it, huh?
Yeah.
We even miss it.
Yeah,
so
look, let's talk about the tariff.
Please.
I mean, we should go back to where this whole issue of tariffs and the big spikes on tariff from one MYPD period to another really comes from. And this is because
I've got 21 questions.
Yeah, the first line in a makeup of a tariff reflects the expected return on our asset base. I can tell you now that moving from the last MYPD period to now, both ourselves and NECC are almost in perfect agreement in as far as what our asset base is. We'll also be able to show you that for the current MYPD period that's coming to an end, the regulator has allowed a return of, listen to this, 1.67 on our asset base. Nobody in here will invest for 1.67 return. The IPP returns 17% and around.
Yeah, but that was a rip-off.
So the cost reflectivity is necessitated by exactly that gap that is historical, with the acknowledgement that we need to continue to invest in our assets to keep them going. So that's where the first line comes from. That's a line that deals with primary energy. Many of your audience in here are suppliers of mine, some of them providing coal. We've got long-term contracts with prices locked in there for much more than the NYPD period. We cannot have those prices be moving up and down. We know what it costs. It's sitting there. There's lines in there that deals with policy decisions that we make as a country. We've moved from environmental levies a few years ago. We're now moving into CO2, tariff or portion that's coming. These are country choices that are reflected in the pricing that we sit with. We have Munichs that are not paying us. We're sitting at 80 billion rands of unpaid bills from Munichs. You've seen in the last few days, the headlines regarding one of the municipalities. There's zero recovery of Munich debts, and for the last few years. So I think the current tariff application, against the backdrop of the country's resoluteness in terms of fixing load shedding, the current tariff application is going to also start making us talk about what choices do we want to make, what Eskom do we need for it to ensure the baseload supply for the years to come, and how do we want to actually fund it. Let's have that conversation, and I really hope that through the multiple channels that are provided by NERSA, we'll have the inputs coming through, so we can discuss this once and for all. I do know it's an emotive subject, I recognize that, but let's now face this issue and deal with it once and for all. We should not be sitting here 10 years from now and discussing the need to move to cost-reflective tariffs. You know, we should deal with this whilst we have the energy.
So at last night's PPP version 2 launch, I think we got feedback a few times today that we are boldly going to target 3% GDP growth by 2025.
I think it was 3.3.
3.3. These bloody engineers, eh? Jeez, I mean, 3.3. I mean, the question...
Rudi's sitting there, he says that's not the right number. Eh? 3.3.
3.3. Can Eskom guarantee power for the economy to grow again?
Yeah. Look, our commitment as Eskom today is to continue doing what we've been doing for the last 188 days. No load shedding. We are very focused on this. We think it's doable. We've said that as long as we maintain the current regime of operating our plants and maintaining them as we do in the manner that we are doing, we should see this performance around EAF being sustained. We also said that we need to bring in the new capacity that is still not online yet. Medupi Unit 4, Kusile Unit 6 to be synchronized to the grid before end of the year. We need to bring this second Quebec unit also before the end of the calendar year. When we have that extra 2,500 megawatts or so, and we sustain the performance that we have, we'll have sufficient cushion for us to really build up, on the path that we have. Over and above that, we need the additional renewable energy to come through as well in the next year. And you will have seen last night's focus is also about bringing some 4 gigawatts of renewable energy onto the grid. We need to make sure we remove the constraints that are in the transmission networks so that the long-term energy security can be secured.
Dad, Michelle is waiting for her turn to be verbally abused by me and the audience, so she can't wait any longer. But a final question. You can see you at a mining conference when somebody asked if you worry about the lack of investment in coal mining. I mean, coal mining is obviously the supply side of your business for the foreseeable future. Is there, I mean, geez, I grew up 10 years ago, we spoke about a coal cliff. I'm still waiting for the cliff, but it hasn't come. Is there a coal cliff? Do you worry? Are we under-investing in coal for your purposes going forward?
We've recently taken a look at the remaining life of the coal fleet from a power station perspective, and as we always do, try to match supply for that duration. There's a period of 2 to 3 years where Eskom didn't make any decisions around investment in coal because Eskom was a little bit unclear of its strategy as far as the continuing operation
unclear of its strategy as opposed to flippant confused. Well said. I mean, okay. Unclear of its strategy. Quote unquote.
Very politically correct. Yes. We're now dealing with that backlog. Coal mines do take time to develop. We do have some gaps to close for the remaining lives of our stations, but we'll address this in time. I'm comfortable that the teams are picking up the pieces now, and the industry should be feeling the fact that we are now creating the necessary attention to that aspect here.
Ladies, gentlemen, I think we all feel quite comfortable that the leadership at Eskom seems to be getting on top of the issues. Personal opinion, I think widely shared. Dan, I know you sit here, you don't want to take credit, and you're right, it is always a collective effort, but thank you for leading that effort. I think on behalf of all of us, we appreciate you coming here, facing us. So, ladies, gentlemen, Eskom CEO.
Thank you.
Now it's your choice whether you sit here to support your colleague or whether you go and sit where she sat and you rejoin us later.
I may just catch the wrong bullets. I'll go there.
We'll call you back up. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Come through.
Where are my lawyers? I'm now engaging with an advocate, so I'm worried as we start off already. Michelle, thank you for joining us. I mean, I must say last year, your predecessor, temporary, actually tendered her resignation in the morning, and she came straight from the airport to come and boldly participate in this conversation. That wasn't Portia, that was after Portia. The year before, Portia came and she boldly laid out some views which we totally disagreed with. So our relationship as this platform with Transnet is super robust. Super robust, I think. And yet, I mean, quite frankly, this is what we try to achieve. Now, I want to start off by saying the general perception, I think, but let's say my perception is we're beginning to get a sense that Eskom has turned the corner. I'm not sure whether I get that sense yet about Transnet. Now, could easily be misinformed. Are you there yet? Are you beginning to feel like Transnet is turning the corner? Just broadly.
Well, I'm also asking if we're there yet. No, we're not. So there's still a lot of work to do. But I think that, for 6 years, Transnet has been on a downward trajectory. And last year, this time, when we looked at the numbers, it looked like if we did nothing, that we would be even worse off. So there was a lot of work that we needed to do. And I think when you look at the 23-24 results, you see that we did not end up worse than last year. So I think, the numbers will speak for itself. Now, yes, there's so many things that we experience in our business. People will say to you, yes, but you haven't really done anything. There was a strike and all sorts of things. At the end of the day, it's the numbers that talk. And when we did the modeling, we could have been easy 10 million tons worse. But we ended up with about 3 million tons better than what we had the previous year. So I think that the improvement is beginning to show. For me personally, purely because of my nature and the way I am, I would have preferred to start in March like Dan and
Good
have
timing,
no load shedding.
Good timing, yeah, good timing.
But, it's a complex business. There's a lot to fix. We're dealing with many years of underinvestment, many years of not renewing the equipment that we sorely need. So it's going to take time, but I think with all of the assistance that we are getting and all of the support, through the Presidency, our friends here, NLCC, I'm hoping that we can fast track a number of the initiatives that we currently have on the table. But I think the important thing for us, which was the commitment that I personally made to the customers, as well as to the funders, is that we are going to stop the bleeding, stabilize the business, and try to show some level of improvement. That was the first 6 months. Now we've got another 12 months of this recovery plan. We're in the second phase now. So, if everybody, again, Transnet is a country asset. So if we all work together, and we all get our hands dirty, we can make this work.
So I never allow the mining companies to get away with the blame Transnet, because that's not my role here. But you must be the person with the team that sits on a lever to pull for the economy, which maybe, if some of the numbers are correct, 40, 50 billion rands of potential extra revenue to be generated per year. I mean, that's a huge challenge. Are you and your team up to that?
I think that we have good people. We've done quite a bit to try and stabilize the leadership. At the same time, there's a lot of fixing to be done. At the people level. I sit with, at the moment, as we speak, I think a few months ago, we suspended 12 management employees.
Competency or corruption?
a bit of both. So these are things that we need to deal with. And you know that when you are disciplining people for things like corruption or for wrongdoing, let me call it that, that you have to now work with a number of actors. And you can't do anything because, I mean, I'm a lawyer, right? You're innocent until proven guilty.
Is it?
Oh ja, nee, so is het werk.
No. We have found you guilty already.
Dis hoe het werk. So you have to follow process. And, you know, when I was acting, I took the attitude that I have to act with full mandate because my customers were not going to accept anything less. Neither would my stakeholders. I had to make decisions as if I was permanently in the position. So those are the things that we're pushing people to do as well, that you act with authority, despite the fact that you are an actor. So yes, on the leadership side, we've stabilized a bit at my level and the people reporting to me, but certainly at the lower levels, there's still some work to be done. And then also, because we are together with fixing the organization, we are also transforming the organization or busy with the reforms. You also then have to ensure that you have the right leadership in place for possible new businesses or operating divisions that you will be setting up. So these are the things that we're dealing with right now.
So last year I truly got shouted at by Praveen after commenting that I think at some stage we must blame the shareholder. He didn't like that. You've got a new shareholder representative, as has Dan. But your shareholder representative, you're part of a broader portfolio. Is the shareholder changes or the representative, is the fact that you've got a new minister and a different structure, is that a positive or a negative or a neutral? This is the end of your career, young lady. I mean, this is your exit. Your contract is secure. Just say it, and then we can. Next year we talk to the next CEO of Transnet. No, it's not a loaded question. It's a sincere question. Now,
you must be careful what you put out in the universe.
Yeah.
So, I can work with anyone. I've been in Transnet for 25 years.
Sure.
I have seen a movie play over and over. I've seen leadership come and go. Interestingly, every time leadership changes in Transnet, they get rid of the level that reports to them immediately. It doesn't work, in my opinion. But that being said, my boss is my boss. Whoever my boss is my boss. My job is to ensure that I never embarrass my boss. So I must do my job, and that's what I focus on. I work for a state-owned company. It is a government asset. I will implement policy, but I will also ensure that my shareholder is aware of possible pitfalls in what we're trying to implement. Because at the end of the day, as I've said, this is a South African asset. It doesn't matter who is in government and who is not in government. I have to make sure that that asset is utilized to the benefit of South Africa. So I'm always going to be mindful, yes, of who my stakeholders are, and you know, the shareholder is the shareholder. I'm very happy that actually we have a shareholder who is very deliberate about understanding this business and wanting to do what is best for the country as a whole. So I don't have, you know, whoever the boss is the boss. I have a job to do.
I gave Dan half of your time, but I'm sure you will thank him afterwards. But I want to get to one question, and it's a question I should also put to Dan. So as a South African, I feel like your balance sheet problem now gets solved through cost-reflective tariffs. Your balance sheet problem, to a large extent, was corruption and incompetence, and it's our asset, so it has to be solved. But shouldn't it be solved differently? Why do you want to pass your costs on to consumers? Isn't this a government problem? I mean, shouldn't the debt shouldn't your balance sheet be sorted out differently?
And I must also be careful how I answer this
No, but
one.
you just say Bernard said, and then say it. If you were me, what would you have said?
The balance sheet is not as it should be.
No, yeah.
That's why we have projects like balance sheet optimization exercises that we're doing. Now, Dan was very good with his answer about cost-reflective tariffs. And it's important because both government and private sector has to be sustainable. Now, I hear you, 100%. I sit with probably up to 67 billion rand of what I call ineffective debt. So it's money that has been borrowed by people back in the day for the purposes of buying assets to resource this network, and they did not do that. Now, like you say, corruption, and even maybe government should. So we're having these conversations. Now, with the reform, we've gone to market, and we've tried to put up a proposed, and I say a proposed pricing methodology. And together with that, there was a indicative, I call it number. And everybody was up in arms about this number. But when you understand regulators, and it's important that we have strong regulation in this country, because if we don't, then you're going to find parties taking advantage of one another. So regulation is important. Now, as we move forward, what we need to understand is what is this methodology that the regulator will eventually adopt. I don't know what it is. What we've done is provided the regulator with options for pricing methodology. So you can do regulated asset base, where you want to recover whatever you've put into the system, and there are others, right? Now, at the end of the day, it is the regulator who will, together with the public, which is why we ask the public to become part of this consultation process and to be loud in terms of, and bold in terms of your voices, so that the regulator takes that on board. So it's not a bad thing that people are complaining about tariffs. Now, when the regulator, and I'm speaking specifically about the rail reform that we're busy with now, when the regulator decides on the best methodology to adopt, there will then be also a process as to what should be the right tariff, okay? Now again, cost-reflective tariffs remains important. We are always going to comply with the tariff methodology. So the tariff methodology may spit out a number that the market cannot bear. Again, the regulator, who will be a strong regulator, I would like to believe, is going to look at that and ultimately decide what it is that the market can bear. And hopefully we then get a tariff that is affordable, right? But is also the right tariff, so that we can actually grow the market and not have a negative impact on the market, because that's not the intention.
Will you allow me to invite the rest of the panel on stage for the further conversation, the other stakeholders
Am I done?
participating? Yeah. I truly spend your time on Dan.
Oh,
so
okay.
Dan and who else? Mpumi and, not you again, Rudi and Martin. Come join us.
My partners in crime.
Yeah. Let's talk about this unholy marriage of private-public partnership. Anyway, sit. You sit where you sit, young man. You sit anywhere. Ladies first.
I want to sit next to Rudi.
Suck up to Rudi. I would sit next to Michelle if I understood the iron ore business. Huh?
We together all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine this unholy relationship developing. Mpumi, so, I now get it. Easy to solve the problem. We double your tariffs. I like that. I'm not an iron ore miner. I don't buy your ore. It's, so give us the customer perspective of Transnet. Let's speak Transnet and pricing and capacity. What do you prefer? Double the volume at any price, double the price? Just give us a customer perspective here.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bernard. When you were joking, by the way, I thought of Mteto, who used your initials, but then I decided not to say it. Everybody gets it. No, I'm joking. So I think a couple of things. One is, Michelle and Dan have shared about where we currently sit. And it's still a challenging space. And I like Michelle's answer, because it was acknowledging the fact that we definitely are not where we'd like to be. The people that we compete with, and I'll talk iron ore for a little bit, but the same applies whether you're talking coal, chrome, or manganese. They operate in other regions. They happen to be a little bit closer to the port relative to where we are from a South African perspective. And from an export market perspective, they also happen to be a little bit closer to the customers. So you can imagine, from an iron ore perspective, I know that people think that from a Kumba perspective, we're big. But let's put that in context. All the iron ore miners in South Africa only make up 3% of the global market share. And that's what we need to think about. It's the essence of the fact that we are price takers when it comes to the market. We only make up 3% at our current volumes. So what we need to think about is the essence of saying, how do we remain competitive? For global bulks miners, and bulks, I've already stated who they are, sadly, it's volumes. That's what makes or breaks your business. And even for people that are investing in other countries, that's what they think about. So this is a significant element that we consider. And that's the reason why we are working in partnership from a collaboration perspective, because we've moved away from the fact of saying, let's blame Transnet or let's blame government, etc. We all realize that we are in trouble. We all realize that we need to sort this out together. And ours is to say, what are the other models that we should consider as we sort this out? And there are things that we can then borrow from, and that's why I like the essence of this panel, when it comes to other countries. Because you've spoken about the Transnet debt, and I fully understand where Michelle is coming from. But that's the space that we need to think about slightly differently as we think about the reforms and say, how can we allow for greater private sector participation, understanding that if we get it right, Bernard, then we should be able to drive for both elements of the equation. A logistics system that essentially works, but at the same time, the aspect of driving for inclusive growth for our country as a whole, which would be about ensuring that the mining industry remains competitive. And for me, we'll come back to it, this is where we need to look outside the box and say, what are the other potential solutions that we can consider? They exist, by the way.
But now you're fresh back from New York, where you were a politician, so let's strip you of your politician behavior here. I'm sure it was here 2 years ago, where you quite arrogantly suggested to the then Transnet that Anglo should just take over some railway lines. And I'm paraphrasing, but I'm sure that's how Portia at the time heard you, and she responded to that. Are you slightly more open-minded now? Are you and your ownership the only solution, or are there other models?
So let's think more broadly about private sector participation, because it covers a full range of things. There's the space that we are currently looking at right now, and that's around mutual collaboration agreements. You know, the coal guys have it. We are working on it with Transnet because we need to drive for collaboration around the space. And then as you start looking at PPPs, there are various models that you can consider. What I said then, and I didn't say it exactly like that.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
I translated it for the audience.
I'm a miner, but I don't speak like that. It's still something that we believe needs to be considered. And it's the essence of saying that for that corridor, it's one railway line, it has a couple of loops that connect everything, and it has a port. So you sort of need to fix the whole integrated system for everything to run. If you fix wagons, guess what? You'll still have issues. If you fix locals, you'll still have an issue. Because if the track is broken, there's still an issue. So this is about saying, how do you look at an integrated system that will deliver results, understanding that we also talk about the same thing as miners. We talk about the value chain, and the value chain is interconnected. And that's where we spoke about the essence of looking at the potential concession. And it's one of the models that one can look at. Are there others? Bernard, the biggest thing is we believe that we need to talk about this. And what then excites us is the fact that if you look at the policy reform space, it's actually moved significantly from where we were 2 years ago. So the freight logistics roadmap came up at the end of last year. We got another piece that was absolutely fantastic just before elections. And I'm sure you'll hear from the rest of the panel around the fact that there's more appetite for us to talk about greater private sector participation, understanding that it's about us coming together and saying, how do we solve for the right thing for the country? And that right thing that we need to solve for is what needs to get us to that essence of GDP growth. And I've had a lot of numbers. Now, engineers are like,
Decimals. Yeah.
decimals, no? I like what Dan was saying. So I had 3%, 3.1%, 3.3%, 3.5%. The biggest thing is, we all agree that our economy has got to grow.
Yeah, by much
we
more.
owe it to the rest of the country. And we know that from a mining industry perspective, we are blessed with the endowment. So how do we best unlock this from a logistics perspective? The key is we need to work together through collaboration, which is what we were celebrating from a phase 2 launch yesterday. Because that's the essence of saying there's no one single party who can do it. We need to come together and do this together.
So, Martin, you've been involved in this process for probably since inception. So perhaps you can give us a bit of a context, where it came from, what it's morphing into, and perhaps address a concern I, as a South African, would have, that not a hell of a lot of good has come out historically when big government and big business comes together. If we add big labor, then it is a gemors. So what is different this time?
Yeah, so Bernard, let's look at the origins of the partnership, because the origins of the partnership, of course, was the pandemic.
Okay.
But it's worthwhile looking at that because business then, it was large and small, formal and informal, across all sectors, recognized that we had a massive challenge. None of us were able to predict what was going to happen. And we mobilized a very significant amount of resource. We didn't care where it came from, as long as people left their egos outside the front door and their sharp elbows, and they mucked in. It didn't matter whether they were working with their competitors or not. And we partnered with government, both during the first year of the pandemic and then during the design, development, operationalization of the vaccination rollout program. And at that time, you may remember, we authored an accelerated economic recovery strategy. It was the first time that all of business had subscribed to a single economic vision for the country, at the request, I have to say, of the President. The fact that it took a long time to not be implemented, we can debate and discuss. But I think it created for many of us, if you like, the groundwork for the partnership that we have now. What we then did, sort of, I suppose, a year and a half later, was to meet with the President and say that if we weren't going to solve 4 or 5 key issues as a country, we were never going to get out of the paralysis that we were in terms of growth, let alone inclusive growth. And those 4 or 5 issues, it's worth talking about the 5 as opposed to the 3 we focused on, were energy, transportation and logistics, water. I think we all know that it's coming up on the inside track, crime and corruption, and the inner cities and municipalities. And we decided, in consultation with the President, that actually we had to focus on 3 rather than 5. We didn't have the resources. I have to say, both the government and the private sector have capacity constraints. We needed to put in place the infrastructure, the governance arrangements, the institutional capacity, the terms of reference, whether it was for the National Logistics Crisis Committee, the National Energy Crisis Committee, or indeed the Joint Initiative on Crime and Corruption, and Rudi will, I'm sure, attest to this. These are all government structures. They're not private sector structures. We're invited to participate and collaborate and support the government. The architecture of structural reform has to be with government. The regulation needs to be independent, but that doesn't mean that we can't unleash the potential and the capacity of the private sector. And that's exactly what we've done over the past year. You know, the truth of the matter is that success has many parents. and failure has but one, even if you can find the one hiding somewhere in the corner. But the process of making sure that Eskom could address many of its challenges, although primarily driven by Eskom, was aided and abetted undoubtedly by the Energy Action Plan overseen by the National Energy Crisis Committee and assisted by the private sector. And I have to say, although the headlines capture big business, it's not just big business, Bernard, it's all business. We're very clear about that. If we've got subject matter experts and we've unleashed some 350 of them into this process, they don't just come from big business. When we're capacitating government, which we do through the Resource Mobilization Fund, we're picking individuals and institutions who have the requisite skills, capability, and experience. We donate it to the presidency. It doesn't come from big business. In fact, the model that we're talking about is almost unique. It was unique during COVID and the pandemic, and it's unique now. If you go to New York, which we do, or to London, or to any of the other major capitals, and you discuss the partnership that's in place now between government and business, then I think that they say that if only they could work in that type of collaboration. The second point is, and you talk about it, is sort of unleashing labor as well into the mix, the remorse you talked about. Now, interestingly, when we went to the president nearly 2 years ago, he announced the fact that he wanted a grand social compact, you may remember. He wanted it within 100 days. There were bilateral negotiations involving government and business and government and labor. We were very clear that the more that we focused on that, the less we'd make progress on a limited number of focus areas. And that's where we've defaulted to. In fact, let's call them narrow social compacts, where we have the capability and the ability to really drive reform and success. And the last point I would make is, I mean, Michelle talked about it, and Dan could have talked about it, is balance sheet constraints. The truth of the matter is that if Transnet isn't appropriately capitalized, it can't even remediate the issues it has to remediate.
Yep.
Now, it can do it directly or it can do it indirectly. Can we open up the floodgates for private sector participation? Absolutely. That's what we've seen through the Renewable Energy Program, with two caveats. The first is it has to be appropriately regulated. If we don't have the regulatory capability and capacity, we can't go down that road. And the second is ownership doesn't need to be a necessary ingredient. And there are many models, we all know, that can achieve the same objectives. But can we make sure that the private sector can participate appropriately? I think that's absolutely the case. And that's why we're seeing the level of enthusiasm for phase 2 of the partnership that was announced yesterday afternoon.
I'm now coming to my favorite sparring partner. I mean, Rudi doesn't only represent big government. In big government is this humongous presidency, the super presidency, where people with fantastic jobs and no accountability interferes in everything. Rudi?
Isn't that something that we should be doing more and more?
I don't know.
In coordinating across government?
But shouldn't government be more efficient?
Yeah, of course.
How do we have to coordinate? No, but give us the perspective. I mean, I always put you on the spot and then you come out aggressive. It works like a charm.
I don't know why you dislike me so much, Bernard.
I know, man.
We go to the same coffee shop every single morning.
So, Rudi, the presidency, the coordinating role, the capacitating, I mean, you obviously believe it's net a positive. Give us that perspective. What is it that function and your role within that, your team, what is it that you do to now resolve these national asset issues?
I mean, thanks, Bernard. You got to see it also in the context, because I think there is this perception that we got a super presidency. I think when the president took office in his first term, what he did recognize was largely some of the stuff that you see coming online in the last 18 months and, of course, into the 7th administration, was that there's a significant capacity constraints in delivery. That's the one aspect. And that may be because of a number of reasons, but one of the bigger reasons is being the destruction of state capture. Right? Many skilled people left, many people were purged, and of course, that left the state relatively.
And a lot went to jail. Oh no, not yet.
Some have. Us, Dan will tell you the successes that are happening in Eskom, particularly the work that we're doing in NECC around that, right? The second part was that what you did see was a significant disarray in coordination, right? So as you were saying earlier on, you were talking about departments doing this and another department doing that. That's not the way government should function. The efficiency of it, at least, is to bring it together and have a central coordination point for us to be able to have and direct at least government policy or actions in that relay. The third area was that I think the President had said was that he wants to see his presidency being much more action-oriented, delivery. Delivery has been the key of that. So it meant that you had to think very differently from the previous administrations around how you want to structure presidency. And of course, setting up a project management office was his first call. And during COVID, we then, of course, developed a more coherent response through the Economic Recovery and Reconstruction Program. And particularly, I think, the point that you move towards is the establishment of Operation Vulindlela jointly with the National Treasury. And the reform program has been quite an important part of that growth paradigm that we talk about. So it's not I think it's quite important to clarify that the structural reform program is not the macroeconomic policy. It's part of that policy intervention. It's a supply side intervention that we've got to fix. We've got to do a lot of demand side stuff. We've got to have our macroeconomic, fiscal, monetary policy stuff, right? We've got to do industrial policy. We've got to do a lot of the stuff that you guys have asked for. But this was an important thing because it was in our control and it was a binding constraint on a whole set of different things. And that played out, as you can see, simply between Dan and Michelle within the energy and the logistics space. So we spent a lot of time in looking at that, and part of that was to say, what is it that we have not done? And it's quite interesting because one talks about energy reform, for example, and the stuff that we've introduced in the last 2 years. Those decisions were taken in 1998, perhaps. Let me just give you that sense. We've never done it, right? Similarly, for the logistics space, if you talk about what we needed to do around separation and private sector participation in that, for Dan, of course, it was the unbundling, right? And specifically creating a competitive market, dealing with EDI distribution reform. For logistics, 2004, similarly decisions taken and never implemented. And I think what we've come to is a decision that we needed to implement those reforms. But I want to, if I may, give me a little bit of comment of it, because I think, the two individuals over here, both CEOs, GCOs, right? I mean, they have done an amazing job. I would not want to be in their positions. Because if you think about coming out of state capture, and then you got an operational deficiency because of the impact largely of state capture, you got to turn around that and ensure that you make money. And at the same time, you have Rudi on your shoulder pushing on the reform. It is really, really a difficult task. But both of them have kept to their task. Dan, for example, and just as important, I mean, Dan started, first thing he did, call up and say, look, can I get a sense of how NECOM operates? I need to align with that. But you can also explain to me how the reform program is going. What is it that we're doing around unbundling, and of course the National Transmission Company of South Africa. In his time, he didn't separate and say, look, I want to do my operational stuff first, I need to get the debt moratorium sorted out. He said, I'm doing both of it. And during his tenure, his first few months of starting, we did the separation, successfully so, of the National Transmission Company of South Africa, and it operationalized and started trading from the 1st of July. I think that's successful. Michelle, the same thing also. And I think we should give him it's very difficult. So when he says this is teamwork, he is partly right. Yeah. I mean, we must take some credit as government also. We must, right? But I mean, for a CEO to run a complex challenge on turning around and getting energy supply at the same time doing reforms that are going to be important for a long-term market structure that allows for competition, it is a complex space, and I don't envy that. Michelle is slightly newer, with the reforms being much more later, and of course the freight logistics roadmap being adopted. So, all in all, Bernard, I think that's really the role. We want to get that policy coherence. We want to get the policy decisions that we've taken implemented. We want to see what I think both Mpumi and Martin have raised about is getting private sector participation. And that's where the growth is going to lie. And I think that's why there's this confidence that was reflected yesterday. That we've got to see the opportunities both in energy, and that's transmission, distribution, and generation. Significantly so the work that we've done around the private sector, embedded generation, and similarly in the rail and port space from Michelle's point of view around getting private sector participation and investments into those particular sectors. So that's really what we've got to do. We've got to drive the reform program consistently across government, and that's really the role that we've played where we sat in the project management office.
I'm super excited about the future because I think 10-year-old and 12-year-old and 14-year-old South Africans get exposed to conversations you can't have in another country, like the tender process at Portnet and the Chinese locomotives that is the wrong size. And I mean, these are dinner table conversations, which I don't think other countries' future engineers get this at the dinner table. The list of Transnet issues continues to be long. And these are legacy issues. Are you resolving them? Is this the area you would really need Mpumi to help? It's bring more money? Or, do you want it to help you with, just give us a sense of, from a Transnet perspective, what would better collaboration and cooperation look like, Michelle?
So look, we're doing a lot of work with customers at the moment, particularly the ore line, the coal line. I think together we have been able to get a very clear picture of exactly what the state of those networks are, those lines. And together we are trying to almost speed up the rate at which we can improve or at least get the network to the right standard. But the panel, and everybody is correct, is that there's no money within Transnet, and there's no money within government. So it has to come from somewhere, which is why we have to go to market and get the private sector to do this with us, more formally and more structured. Because it is important that the reform is properly structured. We don't want the kind of things that you've been talking about that happened in the past happen going forward. We want to be very clear about what it is that we want to do. So this reform has to be properly structured. Now, we are ready with a number of transactions that we need to get out into the market. But we have to ensure that the enabling processes are there, so that as we adjudicate these things, we're very clear about the partners that we want. I also don't want to take money from crooks, right? I need to make sure that whomever I'm investing in who wants to be part of this business.
And the losing bidder is going to take you to court.
And the losing business is
anyway.
going to take me to court. So we want to do it. We want to do it right. So, that's part of the work that we need to ensure that we get done. If you talk about our problems, the network is deteriorating as we speak. So there's a lot of work that we need to do over the next period. What we're trying to do together with the customers is trying to compress the current timelines. We're told by independent experts that it will take us about 5 years to do certain things. We don't have 5 years. I think my customers will agree we don't have 5 years. We need to try to very quickly find ways to do this quicker. So how do we crowd in the private sector? You could be speaking about, as Mpumi mentioned, concessions. We could be talking about, maintenance, JVs, whatever it is that we need to do, management contracts, whatever the case is. Those are the things that we want to talk about, and we want to see how best do we then ensure that the country grows. There are some problems that I would like to fix immediately. You speak about the Chinese locomotives. If we fix that now, immediately you can inject 99 locomotives into the system. It's not going to happen. So what have we had to do? We've had to go to market and find a step-in OEM, which we've done. So we find a step-in OEM, and we're trying to get resources into the system that way. Through our annual shuts together with the customer, we want to make sure that now those shuts count, so that beyond the shut, we have an uptake in the volumes, and we're actually doing the things that we want to do in terms of the year and now. But in the next few months, and Rudi talks about reform together with the day-to-day tactical stuff. The reform is important. We've embraced the reform. We are implementing, and we are working towards those on a daily basis. Corporatization of TNPA is on track to happen April 2025. We have vertically separated the infrastructure manager from the operations. From the 1st of October, we've appointed an interim chief executive to deal with the infrastructure manager, and we've assigned people. We have separated the accounts, we have separated the systems. So for all intents and purposes, the infrastructure manager is operating as a separate unit within Transnet. DCTP 2, you know, if we get that sorted out in courts, that's a private sector participation project that hopefully immediately gives us some money, Martin, to get us to further invest in equipment. We're going to market with a number of transactions over the next period. We're going to be disposing of non-core assets. We're looking at what it is that we can do on the heavy haul lines to see how we can bring in private sector participation there. So there's a lot of work that's going on. Certainly the Transnet, as you've known it, is not going to be the Transnet of the next few years, of the future. Open access, I've been pushing, and some people are saying you need to hang on. My view is open the market and let the market speak.
Who's against that?
Nobody's against it. It's just the speed at which it...
I thought Mpumi is against it. I thought she's against it. Because she wants it for herself.
I think Mpumi knows, you know. And people, I keep saying this, I don't do the procurement for Transnet. I get a proposal every other day with somebody telling me they can do it better. That's great, because we need those innovative ideas coming to the party. But what is important is process, governance. Process must speak. It mustn't hold us back, but the process must run so that at the end of the day, you know, I don't have to defend arguments between two private sector parties. I don't want to have to do that. I want to go to market. We want to do it right first time, Rudi. We want to choose the right partners, because if we choose the wrong partners, it comes back to the country that's going to suffer. So we have to choose the right partners.
So, Rudi, a tone that I hear that is different from, say, 2 years ago, but perhaps it's just my hearing aids have been upgraded. Huh? No, but 2 years ago, a lot of these conversations left me feeling like that the governing party actually pretends to speak on behalf of the nation about national assets. When I hear Michelle and Dan now about talking about our assets, I actually believe them. It includes me. Whether I'm a member of a political party or not, is there a different approach? I mean, are we treating these assets like they truly belong to the nation, not to the current incumbent politically, because they will change from time to time? Is it a shift? Is government finally custodians of national assets, not a place to deploy cadres and stuff like that?
I think it's important to recognize that this shift started already in the 6th administration, when the ruling party, who is now in the GNU, the majority party in the GNU, started this. And this is an important part of recognizing the fact that we've got to do a whole set of transformational interventions, capacity, including stuff that all of us have been speaking about. Including the fact that I think Martin's point, and perhaps one you talked about, what did you say, PPP, right? The PPP launched yesterday. You know, you're sometimes so silly when you say these things. But the PPP launch, as you say, I mean, it's such an important part, because what makes it so fundamentally different, Martin and I have been involved in collaborative efforts and social partnership agreements. I mean, we can unpack, you know, folders full of different compacts that we've negotiated over the year. But what makes this one fundamentally different is that it's action-orientated. It's specifically looking at what particular sorts of capacity and support private sector can provide in guidance. Now, you're right. I mean, we've never really done that, right? We've always said we're going to fix this on our own. Dan himself, before Dan started, you know, Eskom was, we're going to do this on our own, even before Michelle. Don't ask us, we're going to do this on our own. And I think that's the reality that we've started many years ago in the 6th administration, and we continue to do that in the 7th administration. So yes, I think the ability for the president to say, I as the president in the 7th administration under GNU, I want to continue that collaborative effort, and I want to continue drawing on different people from different political backgrounds and from different parts of society to be able to support this transformation agenda around building our economy. So yes, I think it is, but you got to think of it not just starting yesterday, right? It didn't start yesterday. It started way back when I think the president started his first term of office.
But then, now that I've been put in my place for my I think of it from yesterday. You're a Johnny-come-lately. You've been around for how long now? Less than a year?
Been around where?
You're new to this process.
Which process?
This process of collaborative solving problems in the Eskom context. I want to hear your perspective. So clearly, I sense Eskom is bought into this. Help us. It's a collective effort. What would you have done differently? If you tell Rudi and Martin, they're in love with their process. It's a perfect process. It's solving all the problems.
Yeah.
You live with that process. What could be better? What could be different? Constructively.
Let me correct some misconceptions. I was in Eskom before.
Yeah, but you also went sugar farming and other stuff.
Hear me out. I did. I need to go back there.
That was a sweet job, eh?
I was in Eskom before, and there was something called the War Room at the time. The War Room attempted to provide country collaboration to solving the problem back then. It didn't work out, and I don't want to go back to why I think it didn't work out. What's good now is that we've got the right level of focus from the leadership that's present, and perhaps we've also learned from that first failed experiment that is working now. And I also need to mention to you that the reason why I came back into Eskom was because I realized from where I was that a country project was beginning to take shape. That's why I came back. I came back into Eskom. Actually, I got a call from Rudi, or an SMS from Rudi. I thought this was a hoax. Back in 2022, to say, would you mind to join a meeting at 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon? And I'm Rudi from the President's private office. I thought someone is pulling a prank on me. And that was my first return in terms of being associated with a group of individuals that were really coming together to see how can we solve this issue. So I came back because I realized that we've got a country project underway. That's why I came back. So there's nothing sudden, nothing miraculous about my attitude once I came back into the role of the GCE.
What would you tweak in this approach to this project?
Look, I'm actually...
Are you happy with
there's a lot, Martin will tell you, there's a lot of robust engagements in this process, but we do so only to improve the quality of the product. And that's what we bring, by the way. We bring experiences and capabilities that sharpen the focus in terms of the solution. We are very clear of what needs to be delivered ultimately, something that works for the country. I'm comfortable with the process, and I think as we move from one phase to another, we'll even get better. Yeah.
Martin, the same question to you. So you've journeyed with this process from inception. You're obviously reasonably happy with where it is. What would you change? What would you enhance, do more of, do less of? Just reflect a bit on this national project.
Well, I think the first thing I would do more of is have senior level involvement. So, and Rudi knows this very well. We were very clear, if we didn't have the President's personal buy-in, we weren't going to move forward. And that happened during the 6th administration, by the way. And driving, if you like, integrative projects like NECC or NLCC, and that's what they are. They make sure that we've got an aligned position within government, which was manifestly not the case before, has been essential. And we've seen increasingly ministers buy into that. And I have to say that the 7th administration, the GNU, what I think we've all detected, the President said it yesterday, is a high level of energy and enthusiasm. A higher level than I think any of us have experienced for many years. That's the
we
first
all
point.
think it's Gayton. It's all Gayton. It's just Gayton.
It is, that's true. That's true.
He rested well in jail and he's so energized.
Exactly so. Exactly. How did you know? The second is that the second is that within business we recognize that we needed to bring in the leadership of business, not just to sort of sign a pledge. It's good that they've signed a pledge, 140 plus, and climbing CEOs have signed a pledge, to climb into the process. So if you just look at the mining industry, we've got Nolita involved in overseeing the energy work. We've got Nkolisi and Mpumi involved in overseeing the logistics work. We've got Neil Froneman involved in overseeing the crime and corruption work, complemented by 10 or so other CEOs and many more who are involved either at the steering committee level or in our report backs. And they're invested personally. They're not just invested through their company, through their sector, through the private sector, because they realize that it's in their personal, by the way, it's in their personal narrow family interests, you know, for their children and their grandchildren that this country actually achieves its objectives. And we saw some very fundamental headwinds that we had to deal with. So first of all, I would get more chief executives involved. You know, the more the better as far as I'm concerned. The second was having clearly defined organizational structures without bureaucracy actually being the enemy of the good. So the processes that we've got are very dynamic, very, very agile. It's been absolutely necessary to crowd in that support. We could do more of it, I think, in my opinion. The third was to agree where we need to stay within our own lane. I mean, one of the work streams we haven't talked about is crime and corruption. If we don't solve crime and corruption, frankly, we don't solve anything in this country.
Yeah.
And it applies both in the private and the public sector and at a societal level. If we can capacitate appropriately some of the, if you like, requirements of the NPA, if we can get off the grey list, the whole country benefits from it, as we all know. So I think that scaling it is important without actually taking our eye off the prize. And that's the debate that we've been having, which is, do we stick with these three areas of focus, energy, transport and logistics, and crime and corruption? Do we extend it? If we extend it, do we incorporate water without in any way undermining the effectiveness of the work that we're doing? The last point I'd make, and it's something that Rudi and I debate all the time, including with, by the way, Dan and Michelle, is the dreaded critical path. We're clear. If we don't have clearly defined objectives, and we don't hold ourselves, and that's ourselves collectively, accountable to meet those objectives in the short, the medium, and the long term, like we would for any business, by the way, then we're going to fail. And we need to account for that transparently, openly, and consistently. It's a very important forcing mechanism, but it's a very difficult one. That's where we debate. And I mean, I think that's healthy debate, by the way. That's healthy debate as long as we've got the same common goals and objectives.
And really, Rudi, this is why we've been bringing you guys to this platform, one of many, year after year, to make this a transparent process.
Absolutely.
Let's rather disagree publicly than think you guys are conniving, because when Kumba and the government gets in the same room, I am worried. But that's just me, obviously. Dan?
No, I just wanted to tell you, you've done enough to get a call from a minister tonight. Yeah. You're going to get a call from the minister. What do you mean?
Which one? Gaten?
You're going to get a call.
This will not be a Joburg Indaba if I don't get a call from a minister. Exactly. So, I mean, you know, I thought you were going to say Pravin's going to call me. Then I would have.
Then you're in big trouble.
You know, Michelle tried to stop me. As a legally oriented person, she put her hand on me and said, just pull out of this conversation. But it's too late.
There's no hope. No hope for you.
There's no hope. There's no hope. No, listen, it's Honourable Gaten. He says as long as you call him Honourable, you can call him anything. So Honourable Minister of whatever and whatever and whatever, yeah. Guys, so this sounds fantastic. I suppose, and by design, we're not talking about crime, the third stream. I mean, your issues is crime on a daily basis. Your issues are crime, our issues are crime. So let's just recognize that today we aren't discussing the systemic dilemma of our country, whether it's the Joburg Metro Police last night with the illegal roadblocks, whether it's people stealing copper cables, whether it's extortion. We've allowed it to become who we are, and it is not who we are. But now everybody wants to speak. I'm going to go ladies first, because you want to defend that Kumba company of yours, I can see, and then Rudi will wrap it up.
Ben, I actually want to just add one thing, and I think we've covered everything. We are now in a space where we know the challenges. You've done independent technical assessments and whatever else it is. We've got plans. We've got the structural reforms that enable this. What matters the most now is speed. Because what moves the dial is not talk, but it's speed. And it's the essence of ensuring that we drive for progress instead of seeking perfection. And I can't believe that I'm going to quote him, but I will. So in an earlier panel, in the legal one, we had Scholes talking about an example of something that happened in Zambia. And he spoke about the fact that there was a $1.6 billion deal that was concluded within 2 months. That's what moves the dial. So the only thing that I want to add is ultimately what moves the dial, it's execution. It's not talk, action. That's it.
But Rudi, as the henchman of the president, nothing
Is that good or bad now?
well, you decide. Nothing in our president's style is fast, decisive, aggressive. It's accommodating. I mean, I'm just reflecting a view of one South African. So how do we cross this bridge? How do we get this?
I thought we're moving pretty fast, right? So separate the president as the head of the country and the executive, the head of the executive, versus what he's asked his technical team to do, including myself. And yes, on regular occasions, even last night, he was saying that, you sometimes think that I do this thing for the sake of doing collaboration. But the point is, the collaboration is part of the execution with speed and with ensuring that we do it within the times that we set. We've got to hold accountable, we've got to be transparent. So you're a little bit contradictory because you said 2 years ago. Now, 2 years ago in the life of government is a short time, right? Yeah. So if you talk about where we were last year, even Bernard, to where we are today, I mean, there's some fundamental shifts, right? I hope you invite me back and you're a little bit nicer to me next year, right? And we'll tell you again what are those changes that both Dan and particularly in the logistics space, I think, and the miners will smile, right? What we will do between now and next year when we do have your Indaba again. I think that execution and the ability to be able to coordinate and build with speed and get people moving quite efficiently and fast is quite an important part. I put my hand up earlier because I think sometimes we forget how important momentum and confidence is quite critical to our agenda. And just by doing a couple of these things, creates a level of confidence both in the SOE space, within the private sector space, within government space. So even if we do crime and corruption, and just we talk about crime and corruption across the two sectors, right? I mean, Dan can tell you the phenomenal work that has been done simply by bringing that the criminal investigative and justice element into dealing with the coal mafia, right? And the theft of coal, in smashing that coal. Or the fact that there are, ability for us to be able to deal with cable theft. And here again, support of the business in that. Michelle will tell you, for example, since the beginning of the year until the middle of the year, and even right now still, 51% reduction in copper cable theft in the North Corridor line. And that's because of business being able to support having, feet on the ground, boots on the ground. So these are important elements, and you see, once you get that momentum, right, that something's been done, and you cascade that, it happens that it's the confidence and the ability of different parts of government, private sector, being able to address that. I think that's really what we got to see. So hopefully this cascades into other elements of what you refer to, policing, civil policing, dealing with theft, dealing with corruption, and a whole set of other things are quite critical parts of the elements that are there. And I think that's where we need to go. Create that confidence.
Yeah, I want to get quickly to Michelle and Dan. Michelle, I've never had the privilege of having a Transnet CEO back a second time. They seem to get fired after this interaction. So I have full faith in you to be back next year. If you are back next year, what is the one thing you're going to say to us? I told you, in a year from now, this will be the case. And yeah, we made it, or we didn't make it, but we came damn close. Is it the rail capacity? Give me the one thing, this audience, you know who you talk to. What's the one thing we can almost just publicly, privately, but yeah, hold you accountable 1 year from now, 12 months, October next year?
Well,
you will be here. First promise is you will be here.
God willing, I will be here. and also my customers willing, I will be, yeah? So, I mean, we talked about it last night. I think Adrian Gore put the numbers up there, and he said there's 170 million tons that we need to get to with a stretch of 193 million tons. It's a lot of work to get there. As we speak, we are behind, so there's a lot of work to catch up. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to say, let the numbers talk.
Okay.
My job is to go back, do the things that Mpumi is talking about, execute with speed. I have to say the following. If we did not have the Logistics Crisis Committee, there's so many things we would not have been able to do, specifically in respect of compressing processes and procurement processes. Because, you know, we put all of these rules on government departments and state-owned enterprises. It makes it impossible for us to procure. We can't do the things in the 2 months that you're talking about. But we've been able to say, let's get these wartime processes because we're at war. And let's talk about what it is that's business unusual, and let's go and let's implement. We still have challenges with our people who are too scared. Why are they scared? Because they're going to be accused of state capture, they're going to be accused of all sorts of things. So we have to consistently be talking to them to say, this is why we're doing it, we have authority, we're doing it within the law, nobody is contravening, let's proceed. Because we've also created a problem, you know, by making people now a lot more scared to do things. So I think definitely with the help of my colleagues here, that doing away with all of these rules that we were operating under has assisted us. I can tell you, if I probably, I mean, I'm still part of, I suppose, government, if I had to go and ask for that on my own, chances are it wouldn't have been approved.
Yeah, yeah. Dan, next year, what are you promising us, dude?
I know that many a times I'm getting invitations to speak so I can talk about how and whether the load shedding is ended forever.
What load shedding? It's a past, man. It's a past.
The conversation I really want us to engage on going forward is the role of Eskom in the electricity supply industry going forward. And, you know, ending load shedding is important, but it's not our destination strategically. We need to get to a point where we talk about how that business is going to pivot so it can remain relevant for the next periods going forward, like it's been the, you know, the pillar of our economic development as a country. And that excites me a lot more than the kind of conversation we are stuck in at the moment. But it's important to stop load shedding, and let's talk about Eskom of the future. Thank you.
Excellent. Ladies, gentlemen, please join me in thanking this panel. Whilst we watch rugby, criticize Mani Libok, shout at Gayton McKenzie, there are South African heroes fighting a good fight to put our economy back on track. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. We literally accepted from Minister Tau this morning that he is literally sick. I didn't ask for a sick note. Despite my background in the mining industry, he said, but if we are comfortable, he'll make the call at lunchtime. And he made the call, and he simply won't be able to join us after tea. I've been in trouble before for lambasting ministers, but sick is sick. So we will have 15 minutes longer tea. So we will have tea from 3. Otherwise, I get a call from Parks as well. Yeah, just 2 calls. My wife is going to run away. So we'll take 15 minutes longer tea, and then we will rejoin. Panel, thank you so much. This was definitely my highlight of the conference. Thank you very much. Thank you.